Yeah, good evening, everyone. In the previous session, we discussed requirement gathering in detail, right? And requirement gathering, can we have some quick assessment, guys, on previous day concepts? Can someone list out, what are the non-functional requirements that you collect in the requirement gathering phase? We'll go first. Sarath?
Yes, sir, Prishant.
Can you list out some non-functional requirements, Sarath? Sarath, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Do you remember any non-functional requirements that we discussed yesterday?
No, sir. Actually, I was not listening properly, sir. So that's why.
That is general and architectural.
Please go ahead. Okay, you want me to stop recording?
For critical business flows. I mean,
what are the critical
performance
business
scenarios.
flows of,
yeah.
Right. What are the critical business flows of the application? And how are the users, workload model? Or how many users do each of the business flow? Isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Okay. So in today's session, let me cover like HTTP request methods and request response cycle. Okay. Another important topic for interview, guys. Okay. Wait. So before that, let me cover this test plan document. Once the requirement gathering is completed, let me go to performance testing lifecycle. So once we collect all the requirements, right, we in the sense, performance testing team have to prepare a test plan and get a sign off from the client, right? So we need to prepare a test plan document and share it to the client for their approval, right? Now let's understand what will be the part of the test plan document. Okay, so these are the different components of a test plan. Our test plan document consists of different various sections like this. The first one is what is the project overview, or what is the objective of doing performance testing. I'll share you one test plan document with you today. Okay, so first, let me explain what is the what are the test plan components, or what are the components of a test plan. Very important entry question, guys. Okay, they will ask like, have you ever prepared a test plan, or are you aware of a test plan document, and what are the components of a test plan, or what does a test plan document contain? The first and foremost thing is project overview. Project overview means what is the objective of performance testing? Why are we doing performance testing for their application? Right? See, we already discussed different goals of performance testing. We already discussed in what all scenarios we do performance testing. You remember that, right? For a newly built application, there are some scenarios where we do for application. For an already existing application also, we may be having different reasons for doing different goals for doing performance testing. So the test plan document contains the first section in the test plan document is what is the objective of doing performance testing. Okay. Here, guys, whether there is a hardware upgrade, or whether there is a software upgrade, or whether a new function, new feature is added to the application, right? So that will be mentioned in the first section. The next section contains application architecture. We already discussed what is meant by application architecture. Can someone answer that? What is meant by application architecture?
Is a pictorial representation of an application
with component software and server.
It's about regarding that three-tier architecture or entire architecture.
Right. So our application architecture means it is a pictorial representation of the software components and connections and all those, right? So who will provide this application architecture, guys? How do we get this application architecture diagram?
Client will provide only.
Right, in the requirement gathering phase, we have to collect this, right? We will get this information from the client in the requirement gathering phase, isn't it? Yes, sir, no, guys. I mentioned it somewhere here.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
See, what is the application architecture? isn't it? That we collect that in the general or architectural requirements. I think it should be under architectural requirements, right? Ideally, it should be under architectural requirements, right? And the next one is after application architecture, right? What are the critical business flows of the application? Okay. 1 second. The next one is what are the non-functional requirements are signed off NFRs, and what are the performance test scenarios of the application, and who provide this information? Yes, where do we get this information? Signed off NFRs and performance test scenarios.
Test plan, sir. Test plan document.
No, again in the requirement gathering phase, we collect this information. What are the non-functional requirements we have to test, and what are the critical business scenarios, right? That's what we say performance test scenarios. We get all these in the requirement gathering phase, isn't it? Guys, I had mute everyone. So if you have any query, please unmute yourself. Okay. So press and hold the space bar if you want to speak for a while. Right. The next part would be performance test approach. The next part would be performance test approach, including the goal of each individual test, entry and exit criteria, and test environment details and scalability percentage. I will explain this, performance test approach and all. Once we complete scripting, right, I will explain this. We will revisit this again, test environment details and what is scalability, right? So right now it's bit too early to discuss this. We will revisit this, once we complete the scripting part. And then test data. So what is the test? What test data is required for doing performance testing? Next important section is we call that as RAID matrix. Right? RAID matrix, RAID, where R stands for risk, A stands for assumption, and I stands for issue, and D stands for dependency. Okay. So observe here, I have highlighted the first letter in each word. Right? This is called as RAID matrix. Okay. And next section is, so under risk, right? So we will mention what are the risks involved, and under assumption, right? We will mention what are the assumptions that we are, considering. What are the assumptions that we are doing, like for carrying out performance testing, and what are the issues? What are the possible issues in, while doing this execution of this project, and what are the dependencies, test data dependencies, environment dependencies, and all, right? And project plan and timelines. What is the project plan, right? And what are the timelines and milestones? Timelines means when do we start scripting, when do we start test environment setup, right? All those details will be mentioned in the test plan document. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Right. And next, non-functional testing team member contact, right? So whom to contact? There will be one person who will be acting as SPOC. Okay. SPOC means single point of contact. Let me open up your notes. There will be one person who will be acting as a SPOC. SPOC means single point of contact from the clients, from the service-based company side. From the performance testing team, right? So that person email address will be mentioned in the test plan document. Who will be acting as a SPOC, single point of contact. Next, in scope and out of scope. What is in scope for doing performance testing, and what is out of scope, right? What will we cover, and what won't we cover, right? That will be mentioned in scope and out of scope. Clear, guys? Right? And then one sample test report that will be part of this test plan document. All these, all these components these are the different parts or the different sections in the test plan document. Now I'll share you one test plan document to you. First, let me open one test plan document, sample test plan document. I'll share you two templates actually. One is a standard template, and the other one like is a simple test plan document of 7 to 8 pages. So here you see this is one sample test plan document, performance test plan and results template. This is, I'll share this to everyone after the session. First, let me show you that. Okay. So this is what, this is how it looks like. A test plan document looks like this. In executive summary, we will mention what is the objective of doing performance testing. Okay. And project background and scope, what is in scope and what is out of scope, performance requirements, load model, right? And different companies will have different templates. Okay. So if it is, different companies will have different templates, but the whole idea remains the same. Any test plan document should cover all these sections, right? Ideally, it will contain all these sections. Clear, guys? Right? I mentioned risks, right? Here you can see what are the risks involved. Risk means if functional errors from validation testing occur and prevent the creation of performance test scripts or performance test execution of performance test project will be delayed until functional errors can be addressed. So the impact would be high for this particular risk, right? And if a performance tuning effort is conducted in the middle, so I'll share this document with you. Please go through that document. Okay, it's easy to understand, right? And we'll discuss if you have any queries. We will discuss in the coming up sessions. And test data preparation, performance test scenario runs, right? When are we going to execute test 1, test 2, and so on? Okay, so that will be there under timelines and a shakeout test and test run 1, test run, right? So test run 1 and this is baseline 2 hour peak hour load test, right? I'll share you one simple template also. So this is, this is a very detailed document of like around 35 to 40 pages. Let me show you one simple test plan document. You don't really require, that much complex one. You can follow this one. This will be easy to understand and easy to like, to compile and easy to understand. Okay. So if you have, I'll share this document with you. It will be around like 7 to 8 pages. Let me explain this one. So first of all, what is, the first section is what is the project overview or application overview. That will be mentioned in the introduction. And then application architecture. So you have to get the architecture diagram and you have to embed it over here, keep it over here. And what is the purpose of this performance testing activity, right? And what is in scope, what is out of scope. This is simple and clear, right? And what are the deliverables of each phase? What are the deliverables in each phase? So we have different performance testing phases: discovery and planning phase, test development, test execution, reporting, closure, right? And in all phases, we'll be sharing daily and weekly status report. In the discovery and planning phase, we'll be sharing the requirement gathering questionnaire, performance test plan, which is nothing but this document, and business scenario flows document. Okay, client will do a walkthrough of their application, a walkthrough of all the critical business flows. And then what we do is we list out all those and prepare a Word document or an Excel sheet to list out all the critical business flows of the application. And then once the test development means scripting is done, right, we have to share the scripts to the client. Performance test script should be shared to the client ideally, right? And test execution and reporting. When we are doing test execution and reporting, we will share the executive test summary report, one high-level report and one detailed report. I'll share that high-level report and detailed report. What all should go into that, into that detail high-level report and detailed report. I'll share that. And closure in the closure phase, right, we will share the handoff or closure document, right? Handoff means we will hand off all the deliverables to the client and we will get a formal approval from the client. So that is after completion of the project. And in all phases of the project, right, we will be sharing daily and weekly status report. Right. And what are the goals and objectives of the testing, right? And this is a test execution process. Test execution process are some organizations or some people call it as a test strategy, performance test strategy. And what is the entry criteria, exit criteria, and all this. Okay. And transaction details, if you observe here, these are the critical business. We list out all the critical business flows over here. and high level test cases, right? So we'll list out all the steps like launch this URL, check organization username and password, right? Once login and dashboard is loaded, log out. So we'll list out all the critical business flows like this. And performance test strategy, test executions, right? Load test pattern. We will just, you will understand all this going forward. Okay, don't worry. Like, if maybe sounding new to you, very new to you, right? Most of you. So we'll learn all this. We'll explore all this. But this is a simple test plan document, which is bare minimum document, right? Which contains all the important details. Clear, guys? Here we will mention the POC name, Spock name. Actually, it should be Spock. Single point of contact name. Clear? Or point of contact. Clear, guys? I'll share this test plan document to you so you can. So this is very important for interviews, guys. What are the test plan components? Any queries, guys?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Next up. So once we share the test plan, right? So we have to get a approval from the client. We will prepare a test plan document, and mostly team leads or project leads will be preparing this case. Okay. So those who are having like 3 years or 2 years experience, mostly they will not be preparing that. Team leads or project leads will be preparing that and sharing to the client. However, this is important for interviews. That's the reason I am covering this here. All right. So you should know at least these points, like what all sections a test plan document contains, right? And once we will share it to the client and we will ask for an approval, right? So client have to go through the document and they have to give a written consent or written approval for the test plan, or else they may suggest some changes, right? And we'll discuss that and we will get an approval from the client. So once we get an approval from the client, right, then we will start the scripting. The next phase in the performance testing lifecycle will be scripting after getting approval from the client, right? Now to start this scripting, right? So we'll go to the scripting part now. I know like you are eagerly waiting for that, right? Yes or no? This is one question that most of you may be thinking, like, how do we create a script, or how difficult is it, or how easy is it, right? So before, right, understand. So before going to scripting, right, let's let me cover some basics, okay? Some basics like HTTP, HTTPS, and all this, okay? After this, once we get the test plan document, so we need to start scripting. So to start that scripting, right, so let's discuss few more performance testing fundamentals. All right. So so please wait for 2 more days. We'll start scripting. Or else do you want me to record to show me how do we record a script now?
No, sir. We'll go one by one.
No, sir, no problem.
Okay. So let's discuss these performance testing fundamentals, few more performance testing fundamentals, because if you learn these fundamentals, then scripting will become easy for you, right? So the first thing that I want to explain is what is meant by a protocol, right? These are different protocols: HTTP, HTTPS, FTP. We have few more, SMTP, right? There are a lot of other protocols. First, what is meant by a protocol means protocol is the communication language between your browser and server. And HTTP is one of the protocols where HTTP transfer stands for hypertext transfer protocol, right? Protocol is used for communication between web server and browser. Clear, guys? Protocol is the communication language between browser and server. Browser server మాట్లాడుకునే language ne protocol అంటాం. Clear, guys?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, clear. And HTTP
Yes,
is a stateless protocol. Stateless means the request doesn't know anything about the previous request. Any request doesn't know anything about the previous request. That's why it is called as a stateless protocol. You will understand this, like once we start scripting, you will understand this. And the port number that HTTP uses is 80. Port number, standard port of HTTP is 80. Now let's understand what is meant by port number, right? So first of all, port number means it is a software port, not a hardware port. It is a software port. and each application will be listening on some port number on your computer. Okay. So you will understand that, in the first sample application, when I cover the first sample application in scripting, right, you will understand that clearly. We will discuss that in detail. For now, remember that the standard port number of HTTP is 80. Okay. And the next protocol is HTTPS, where S stands for secured. Right? You all know this, you all know, or you might have already come across this HTTP and HTTPS many a times, right? So HTTPS stands for Hypertext Transfer Protocol Secured, and encrypted HTTP data is transferred over a secure connection using SSL and TLS. So let's understand this. What is meant by this encrypted HTTP data? Suppose when you access any website like Amazon.in, right? Any e-commerce application like Amazon.in. Observe here, there is a padlock symbol here, right? See here, you see a padlock symbol. Yes, here it mentions here connection is secure, right? Connection is secure. That what does that mean? Read these lines. Your information, for example, passwords or credit card numbers, is private when it is sent to this site. Understood, guys? Means, see, if you want to make any purchase, right, you have to enter your credit card number and all this, right? Debit card number or and all this, right? So what is it saying here? This Amazon.in website uses HTTPS communication. HTTPS means it is a secured communication. Clear, guys?
Yes, sir.
Right? So you should not enter any debit card or credit card details without having it on any website which is not having this padlock symbol. Please remember that. Clear, guys? See, if you take any e-commerce application or any travel application, right? So observe here, you see a padlock symbol. All the standard websites, right? So they will be having this padlock symbol. And if you click this, you'll see that, connection is secure. Clear, guys?
Yes, sir.
And any other websites, flipkart.com, right? You see a padlock symbol. And if you see the URL, right? See the URL, see here. It shows clearly that it is HTTPS. So in the same way, if you see Amazon.in, it's a HTTPS application, right? So this is also a HTTPS application, whether it is bigbasket.com, right? All the websites which involves payment, right? They will be secured, guys. Which involves any payment, right? They will be secured. Okay. Now let's come back to this. So, and there is one more point mentioned here. Encrypted HTTP data is transferred over a secure connection using SSL and TLS. Suppose you enter your username and password, or you enter your debit card and credit card, right? That data will not be transferred as it is, but they will be encrypted first. The data will be encrypted and then it will be sent over a secure connection using SSL and TLS, right? Where SSL stands for, yes, anyone?
Secure socket layer.
Right, and TLS stands for Google search. Those who don't know, Google search. Transport. Yes, what is TLS? Sorry. Transport layer.
Transport layer security.
Right. Right. So your data is your credit card data, your username and password. All this data will be transferred over a secure connection, and which uses SSL and TLS. Right. And the standard port number for HTTPS is 443. Clear, guys? Standard port for HTTP is 80 and standard port for HTTPS is 443. Right. The next type of protocol is file transfer protocol. If you want to transfer some files, or if you want to download or upload some files, right? If you want to transfer some files between client and server on a computer network, this is the standard network protocol that will be used, right? So these are the important protocols: HTTP, HTTPS, FTP, and of course there are a lot more: SMTP, Citrix protocol, and a lot more, right? Which we will come across in the scripting phase, right? We'll discuss more on that, once the scripting is completed. Right. And now let's discuss some HTTP basics. Right. So we came across this HTTP, right? So let's discuss in detail. So HTTP is a TCP/IP based communication protocol, right? That is sent by a web server to a web browser. Oh, I'm sorry. That is used to deliver data. HTTP is a TCP/IP based communication protocol that is used to deliver data. When I say data, it can be HTML files, image files, query results on the World Wide Web. Right? So HTTP is a communication protocol that is used to deliver data on the World Wide Web. Clear, guys? HTTP is one of the communication protocol that is used to deliver data on World Wide Web or internet, if you want to speak it in simple terms. And the default port is TCP/IP, but other ports can be used as well. So it provides a standardized way for computers to communicate with each other. You need not, by heart all these days. You need not by heart, but understand like the important concepts. So just, if you understand the first line, which is marked in bold, right, that is enough. Clear, guys? If you understand the first line, which is marked in bold, that is enough. Understand that like HTTP is a communication protocol used to deliver data over internet. That's it. That's enough for now. Clear, guys?
Yes, sir.
Right. And I asked you to already explore what is meant by a cookie and all. Right. So we'll discuss these cookies again once we go to scripting. Again, this is this is too early to discuss these cookies as well. So I feel like once we start scripting, then you will be able to understand. Okay. We'll discuss that, and then at that point of time, you will be able to understand clearly. Next thing you have to know is what is a HTTP request and response. Right? I already explained this, so but let me quickly recap. So what is meant by HTTP request, guys? We already discussed this. What is meant by a HTTP request?
Communication between the web server.
What is meant by a request? HTTP request.
So it can be a query asking to the.
It's a protocol.
Right. So if you type Amazon.in, this is a HTTP request. We are requesting Amazon to send this page, this home page, right? Or if you are searching for some, if you are searching for some trains, right, between two stations, that is a HTTP request, right? And or if you are searching for some products over here, that is one HTTP request. If you search for some product here, that is one HTTP request, right? So a client sends a HTTP request to the web server. A client means browser. We send it from a browser. We send a HTTP request to the web server, and web server receives the request and it will run an application to process the request. First, web server receives the request and it will process the request and it will return a response to the browser, right? So this is the response that we got from the browser for this search. Clear, guys? Or if you click on the any product, right? So this is the response that we got from the. This is the request, and this is the response that we got from the browser or from the server. Clear, guys?
Yes, sir.
See, this is the request that we are sending. Whatever whatever request that we are sending in the browser URL, right? Address bar. We call this as address bar, right? So this is called as HTTP request, and this is the response that we got from the server. Clear, guys?
Yes, sir.
This is HTTP request and this is HTTP response. That's it. Okay. No rocket. There is no rocket science here, right? So that's what this HTTP request and response means, sir. Okay. And what happens in this process is first we send a request to the web server. From a browser, we send a HTTP request, and web server will receive the request and process the request and send some response to the browser. Server returns a HTTP response to the browser. Now the client receives the response. The client receives the response through the browser, right? And A typical, so if the browser requests for a HTML page, server returns an HTML page. If the browser requests a style sheet, server returns a CSS file. If the browser requests a JPG image, server returns a JPG image, and so on, right? Next, if the browser requests a JavaScript code, server returns a JavaScript file. I'll show this with examples, guys. Okay, I'll show these. I'll explain this everything with examples. Once we start the sample application, I'll show that. I'll explain that. Now, so see the next topic. So we came across some new terms here, right? CSS file. We already discussed this. In fact, CSS file, JavaScript file. We already discussed what is the purpose of CSS file. Yes, what is the purpose of CSS file?
Design a page layout.
What is the
Defines the
Different
layout
of the page.
right? And what is the purpose of JavaScript file? Main purpose of JavaScript file is
Data
Layout of the page.
client-side validation. That is one of
Client
the
side
main
validation.
right. And if the browser requests some data, server returns data in XML or JSON. The server returns data in the form of XML or JSON. Right? So we'll discuss like what is XML, what is JSON. Both XML and JSON are used for storing and transporting data. That's it. If we want to transfer some data over internet, right, we can use either XML or JSON. XML has become obsolete now. Obsolete now means it is it is a old technology. Now most of the data communication or data transfer happens through in JSON format. Okay, so I'll explain what is the difference between XML and JSON. Also, I have very good examples for that. So the next slide speaks about this CSS, JavaScript, XML, and JSON. CSS and JavaScript, you already know that. Now let's understand what is XML and what is JSON. Right? XML stands for Extensible Markup Language. Right? That is a full form of XML. And it was designed to store and transport data. As I mentioned just now, right? This was used to store and transport data over internet. If we request if a browser sends a request for a data, right? Server returns data in the form of either XML or JSON. Okay. Clear, guys? Suppose you send a request for employee details, some employee details, right? So we get that data in the form of XML or JSON. Now, if we use XML, right, this is how it looks like. This is how it looks like. If the application is using XML for transporting data, right, this is how it looks like. And if the application is using JSON, this is how it looks like. Okay. Both these XML and JSON are used to store and transport data. Observe here. This is the XML was designed to store and transport data. JSON is also used for storing and transporting data. However, JSON is a lightweight format. That is the reason like XML has become obsolete. Obsolete means what is the meaning of obsolete? Let me show you that.
Non-existing.
Outdated. Obsolete means nothing but outdated. Right? No longer produced or used, out of date. Clear, guys? Obsolete. So XML has become obsolete, right? Nowadays, most of the applications are using JSON because JSON is a lightweight format compared to XML. JSON is often used when data is sent from a server to a web page. Right? When some data is transferred from server to browser, JSON is often used, right? And now let's understand what is this lightweight format, right? So observe here in this example, both XML and JSON can be used to receive data from a web server. So if you requested for data of 3 employees, let's say we requested first name and last name of 3 employees. Okay. And if the application is using XML, right, this is how it looks like. These are called as tags, TAGS tags. There will be an employees tag. Inside that you will have again one employee tag. Inside that you will have first name tag, last name tag. This is the opening tag. This is the closing tag. Closing tag will be started with this backward slash. Sorry, forward. This is forward slash. Sorry. Backward slash means 1 second. This is forward, this is backward slash. This we call that as backward slash. This is called as forward slash. Okay, so observe here, if the data is sent in the form of XML, guys, you need not, no one will ask you to write. Okay, don't worry about that, but this is for your understanding that I am explaining. Okay, so observe here, both these examples show you data of 3 employees only. But if the application is using XML, right, it will be of these many lines. How many lines are there here? See here, 3 lines for each employee details, and then 1 employee's opening tag, closing tag, all right, 9 lines altogether, isn't it? But if the application is using JSON as for transporting data, right, it contains like 5 lines. Clear, guys? Now we understood what is meant by lightweight format. This requires more bandwidth, whereas the number of characters transferred over network will be less here when we use JSON. So this is what I mean to say, it is a lightweight format. JSON is a lightweight format. Clear, guys?
Yes, sir. Got it.
Is it easy to understand, or like something, any complexity over here?
No, it's easy.
No.
Sir.
We have some non-computers, guys, like I want from them.
Sir, it's easy, sir. I am also non-computer.
All right. Okay. One of the important interview questions is, what is the difference between XML and JSON? Okay. So you can say that like JSON is a lightweight format. Both XML and JSON are used for, what is the purpose of those? Both of them?
To store and transport the data from web.
Transport the data.
To store and transport data. And what is the difference between them is JSON is a lightweight format, right? That's enough. If you can explain that, that's good enough. Clear, guys?
Yes, sir.
Right. Now I will cover this HTML DOM later, not required at this moment. CRUD operations also, I will explain it later. And SQL basics you have to explore on your own. Go to W3 Schools, as you will not be having any assignments now. Go to w3schools.com. And you need not be an expert in Excel. Okay, so you just need to learn basics. That's it. Those who are interested, learn this SQL basics. Click on Learn SQL, and you'll have very good and very detailed explanation over here. So please go through these tutorials. If you are already good in SQL, well and good, you can expect like 2 to 3 lakhs more package days for any information. Okay, if you keep SQL in your CV, right, so you can expect at least 2 to 3 lakhs more package than others, right? And it doesn't take much time also. You can learn these basics, in 1 week or 2 weeks. Okay. So learn some SQL basics meanwhile, because you will not be having assignments till we start scripting. Okay. And I will add all of you to Google Classroom, and I will be sharing assignments. Fine.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, okay, sir.
Second, do we have Sai today? Did Sai join today? The next concept that you have to know is HTTP response codes. Okay, and one more definition for HTTP. So HTTP is set of rules for transferring files. Right? Previously, we learned that a set of rules for transferring data over internet. Right? Again, so one more detailed definition is set of rules for transferring files. Files can be text files or graphic images or sound or video or other multimedia files on the World Wide Web, on the internet. Right? HTTP is an application protocol that runs on top of TCP/IP suite of protocols. Right? Did you come across this? Do you remember that? Like those who are from computers background, you might have remember this, right? You might have read this somewhere. TCP/IP. Yes or no? Yes.
Sir.
Am I audible? So did you ever hear this or remember this TCP/IP? What is TCP/IP?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Sir.
Okay, fine. Not required. Just know the definition, all full forms. Okay. So TCP stands for Transmission Control Protocol. Okay. IP stands for Internet Protocol. You need not know the details, okay? Don't worry. We need not know all the details. Like, no one will be asking what is TCP. I mean, can you explain about TCP and IP, TCP IP suite, right? These are the foundation protocols for the internet. TCP IP suite of protocols. It is the sorry. This word is pronounced as suite, right? Okay. And now there are 5 different categories in response codes. There are 5 different categories in the response codes. Let's understand what is meant by this response codes. Okay. So before explaining this, let me show you something. Suppose you type, open developer tools. Did I give you an introduction about developer tools previously?
Yes, sir.
This
Yes,
one.
sir.
This is the called as developer tools, right? Now, suppose you type amazon.in, right? And you have sent a request to Amazon server. Now, observe here. See here. You see something called status code, isn't it? So, which starts with number 2, right? Understood, guys?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Let me show you a few more. So I'm typing irctc.co.in, right? Now observe here. Let's see the main request. What is this called as this? This has a particular term. What is that we discussed just now? HTTP. This is called as HTTP request. Whatever we type in the browser, that is HTTP request. Okay. And see, observe here, this also has some status code 200. Okay. Right. Here what we saw 200. Right. So what does that? You see, these are the response codes that I mentioned here. There are 5 different types of response codes. All the response codes that start with number 1 are informational. Just informational. We cannot see this actually. I mentioned it here. Browsers or user agent will not process and show these response codes. But however, so when you send a request, right? So if the request is received by the server and it is processing the request, right? First it will send a informational response code, right? And 1xx response codes or HTTP codes are only meant for informational purposes. Browsers or user agent will not process and show this. We cannot see these 1xx response codes, right? I mentioned it here. Browsers or user agent. User agent means nothing but browser. See, you are using the browser as an agent to communicate, to access any website. That's why the browser is called as a user agent. Understood, guys, what is meant by user agent? Browser is also called as an user agent. Is it clear? And why is it called as user agent? Any user uses browser to communicate with the server, right? That's why these are called as user agents. Clear, guys?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Right? And now we cannot see this, like actually browsers will not show these response codes. However, you can see these 4 types, right? And just now I have shown you something 200, right? Response code of 200. And what does the 200 indicate? Success. Success means server is saying that. So suppose if you send a request from the browser like this, amazon.in or irctc.co.in, if the server is able to process your request successfully, it will send a response code of 200, and this is called as response message. 200, okay. Okay. Clear, guys? Status code or HTTP status code or response code, all are one and the same. Now, what does 2xx indicate? This class of status codes indicates that the action requested by the client was received, understood, and processed by the server. If the server is able to understand your request, accept it, and process it successfully, then it sends a response code of 200. Clear, guys?
Yes, sir.
Now, there is one more status code which starts with number 3, which indicates a redirection. I want to give some example for this redirection. Okay. That is a popular example. I mean, that is a example that I give in any batch. So suppose you are owning some business or your parents are owning some business, right, in some location, right? And the premises, the shop is not sufficient. Let's say the office or the shop is not sufficient, and you want to shift that to some other location, to a bigger premises or a bigger office, right? So, but you want to inform your clients about this, right? Otherwise, you don't want to lose your old customers, right?
Yes.
Yes or no? So when the business or when the office is shifted to some other location, you will see some, what do you generally do? What do they generally do? The business owner or the shop owner, what does they do? Whenever if they are shifting to a new location, guys,
They will paste a address where this is relocated.
right, they will put up a notice over there, right, that this shop has been shifted to so and so location. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Right? So that their old customers will know that, and they will come to the new location or new shop or new address, right? They are redirecting the old customers to the new address, right? That is the meaning of redirection here. Okay, now that's what redirection means. Okay, now how is it used in the software or in the web application, right? Suppose you have some URL, there is some URL, there is some web application which has a certain URL, right? And if they renamed it, for example, okay, let me give some example. Okay. Suppose there is a web application, it has a certain URL, and tomorrow if they want to change the URL to some other, they want to change the URL, right? They generally use this one. So they will change the URL, and those who are trying the old URL, right, they will redirect that URL to the new URL or the new address, right? That is called as URL redirection. So, and whenever there is some redirection, right, we will get a response code of 3xx. Okay, we get a redirection response code of 3xx. Why I mentioned 3xx and 2xx here is, every time you will not receive only 200. You may receive 201 or 202, 203, and so on. And each number has a different meaning. In the same way here also, you will see some response code of 300, 301, 302, and so on. That's why, I named it as 3xx, 2xx, 3xx, and so on. Is it clear, guys? Whenever there is some URL redirection, right, we get a response code of 3xx. Understood or no? This is the best example. This is the best example that I can give. So observe here, I'll open a new window, private browser, right? And let me launch developer tools. Suppose you type amazon.com. So instead of amazon.in, suppose you type amazon.com, right? And click enter. So observe here now. What is you see the response code of 301, right? See here. Amazon.com is moved permanently, right? And it redirects you to amazon.in actually. It actually redirects to, one second, https amazon.com. https amazon.com, right? You observed here, right? So there is some, you saw some response code of 301, right? So they are saying that this location is moved permanently to some other location, and it is taking you to some other URL, right? Finally, it will show you that the page that you are expecting, right? However, like the once you send this URL, right, amazon.com, right, it is sending one response code of 301, which means moved permanently, right? So in this way, like you see here, you got a response code 301, right? In that way, there is 302, 303, and so on. So I think 302 means moved temporarily. Okay, let me check that. Response code 302. I think this is moved temporarily. Yeah, see here, temporarily moved to the URL given by location header, right? If if there is temporary change in the URL, right, you will get this response code of 302, right? So So these response codes can be broadly classified into 5 types. Those are 1xx, 2xx, 3xx, 4xx, and 5xx. Understood why I gave mentioned here as 3xx?
Yes, sir.
Right? And this category of status codes indicates that client must take additional action to complete the request. Many of these status codes are used in URL redirection. Whenever there is a URL redirection, this response code of this, you get a response code of 3xx. Okay. And what is meant by redirection? I gave some example just now, right? The shopkeeper example, isn't it? The next one is response. Next category of response code is 4xx, which means client side error, right? Suppose if you send a wrong request to the server, then you get this 4xx. Let me show you that. For that, I will take one sample application which I have on my machine called WebTours, right? I started the server. I'll share this software to you. So everyone should install on your machine. If you already have, fine, that's fine. But if you don't have it, I will share the steps to install it, set up that. Okay. And this is the application URL. This is the application URL. Okay. So this is the correct URL. So you have sent a request, let me open developer tools and let me send the request again. Right? Observe here. So index.htm, this is the request that you have sent. See, this is the request that you sent in the browser. This is the HTTP request. Observe here. This is not a HTTPS, but this is a HTTP request, or it follows HTTP protocol. Clear, guys? And you got a response code of 200. Okay, that means the request, your request was processed successfully, and you got a response from the server. Right? Now, suppose like I by mistake I type a wrong URL like this. Right? Let me clear this one. Let me clear this. And suppose instead of index.htm, I send a wrong request, right? Then observe here what is the response code you got?
404.
404 not found. This is very popular one. 404 not found. Right? So server is saying that I could not find what is this page, whatever you are asking. And this is a client side error. Means we have sent a wrong URL or we have sent a wrong request. So whenever there is some client side error, we get a response code of 4xx. Clear, guys?
Yes, sir.
Right? That is about this 4xx, client side error. Now the next one is server side error. If server failed to fulfill an apparently valid request, if server failed to, you might have seen this error many times, 500 internal server error. Have you ever seen that?
This is one thing, sir.
Server error. Have you ever seen that case?
Yes, sir.
Right? So if there is some server side issue, then you get this response code which start with number 5. Right? So 5xx indicates a server side error. Okay. Suppose you are sending a correct request only, but let me stop this server. Okay. I stopped that server. And suppose now if you send a request, right? So let me clear this one. You are sending a correct request only like this. Okay. Index.htm. Right? Now you get some, page not found or some error message, right? Actually, you will get you should see a 500 response code actually. Okay. Let me do see here, localhost refused to connect. Hold on. Let me clear this and do a control refresh. Okay. Just trying to show you if it shows. Okay. Maybe this application is not showing that response code. Okay. I'll show you some examples. Okay. Let me show you some screenshots. See here. So when I typed this URL, right? So I got some error message which starts with number 5, right? And this is the status message. Connection timed out is the status message. So there is some issue on the server side. Server is down, and I got to see this response code of 5xx or 522, which indicates a connection timeout. I have few more screenshots. 520 error code 520, right? And what is the meaning of this is web server is returning an unknown error, and this is with HDFC net banking website. online.hdfc.com inet, right? This is one of the HDFC group application. Clear, guys? Just to show you different response codes, I have captured the screenshots and kept it here in the slide deck. Okay, and this is one more error. 530 and 1016 are same actually, which indicates a origin DNS error. Actually, this 530 or 1016 are same, one and the same, right? So if there is some server side issue, whenever there is some server side issue, right, you will get a response code that starts with number 5. Clear, guys?
Yes, sir.
Before closing the session, let me show you some 500 internal server error. You might have seen that already, right? Let me Google search for that 500 internal server error and see the images. Show you some images. You might have seen this, right? Anytime? Have you seen this anytime?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So whenever there is, so that indicates that there is some issue on the server side. Your server is unable to process your request for some reason, right? Clear, guys? The page is not working or internal server error. Okay, I'll stop it here, guys. Okay, I'll stop it here with the response codes. Let me update your tracker sheet. So we covered test plan document today and HTTP response codes, isn't it? So any queries, guys, before we close the session for today?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Okay. So tomorrow we'll complete as per the plan. Tomorrow we'll complete this request HTTP request methods: get, post, put, and delete. And there are few other methods and request response cycle. So what happens when you send from a request? What happens when you send a request to the server, right? In a browser, where once you what happens from the moment you send the request till you get the response from the server? We'll understand that, and then we will go for like scripting, right? And the plan is we'll complete this by this weekend. All these performance testing fundamentals will be completed by this weekend, right? I will I need to complete some basic definitions also in the performance testing terminology. And from next Monday onwards, I will be starting tool in load runner and JMeter tool in 2 batches, right? Which I already explained. So load runner batch will be from 7:30 to 8:30 or 7:45 to 8:45. Okay. And the JMeter would be from 8:45 to 10. Okay. Sorry, load runner will be from 8:45 to 10. Yeah. Clear, guys? So that is the plan. Okay. Yep. So 1 second, guys. So 1 second. One update. I'll start at 7:30. Okay. Instead of 7:45, we'll do as per this plan. So load runner will be started from 7:30 to, in the morning batch from 7, whose timings will be 7:30 to 8:30, and JMeter will be started from 8:30 to, it will be started in 8:30 to 9:30 batch. Okay. So that is the plan from next week, guys. Any queries, guys, before? So those who want load runner and please be prepared for these timings, and those who want to join JMeter, please be prepared for these timings.